Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to reintroduce to you now. Kerry Mann is a returning guest on our show. Be sure to check out his first appearance on episode 693 of Boundless Body Radio. Kerry Mann is a carnivore diet enthusiast and podcaster behind HomesteadHow on YouTube. Kerry and his family traded big city life for peace and growth on a sprawling 20-acre slice of rural heaven. Kerry has personally experienced a profound transformation through an animal-based diet, and now he wants to share his life-altering journey with the world. As the driving force behind the documentary Healing Humanity, The Power of a Proper Human Diet, Kerry is passionate about changing lives one health decision at a time. Kerry is creating a documentary that uncovers the incredible potential of the carnivore diet, showcasing real-world examples of everyday people through remarkable stories of individuals battling various health issues. He will document their progress, showcasing the tangible effects of this diet on their physical and mental well-being. He's also incorporating expert insights from doctors who champion the proper human diet to provide scientific context and understanding. You can find Kerry and the movie at www.healinghumanity.movie. Kerry Mann, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you back to Boundless Body Radio.
Thank you so much, Casey. It's an honor to be here again. I really appreciate it.
It's such an honor to chat with you again. You're one of the most beloved people in our space. Everybody that meets you and comes across your content just can't say enough great things about you. And I'm going to jump to the very end of the episode that I should be asking you this question. When does the movie come out?
That's the big question, right? The movie comes out early 2026. I know it's been a long time coming. There's a lot of people excited about it, but it has really turned into an epic since we spoke last, Casey. I've literally been all over the planet. We filmed all over Australia, all over Canada. We did 60 interviews. We have over 400 hours worth of footage. And it really got bigger than I anticipated when we first started, but I'm thankful it has. We're doing the main documentary, but we're also doing a series because we have so many stories of healing. So yeah, and we're done now. We just filmed Dr. Sean Baker. He was our final interview number 60. Appropriately so, ending with Dr. Baker, who's started carnivore for so many people. But we finished filming with him about 2 months ago, and we're in post-production. We're editing everything together. And yeah, the goal is to finish it up at the end of this year and have it live to the world and accessible to as many people as possible early next year.
That's amazing. I told you this last time. I am no good on things like TikTok and Instagram because I can't make things brief. Everything I do is like way too long. Like by the time this episode drops, we're dropping a few special episodes that are celebrating our 50-year anniversary of doing this podcast. And I'm including clips from all the different years. And it's just hours long. Like I can't trim it down to just like get to the point. It's so difficult. It must have been really, really difficult to not only accumulate so many stories, but at the same time, like more people are finding carnivore. So even more people are coming out of the woodwork with their own stories. I don't know how you decided to just cut it off and say, like, we're done at this point.
I don't either. It was so difficult because a story would come up and it's like, there's no way we can finish the documentary and not include that story as well. The saving grace for us was really the decision that this is so much bigger than a documentary. This thing's going to end up being 9 hours long and no one's going to want to watch it if we just keep going this way. And the decision to do the series, which I'm almost more excited for, Casey, the series afterwards. We're going to have an episode for every major health issue. So if you have a loved one going through depression or type 2 diabetes, we'll have a whole episode with an expert and individual stories on that topic. So you can just send them right to what they're interested in. But that's really what has helped us. But there's still a couple stories where I'm like, I wish we would have had that for the main documentary also, but we'd never get it done. And the other thing I'll just say real quick, some people have been like, why is this taking so long? It really hasn't been that long considering the premise of the film from day one has been, let's follow individuals over the course of 1 year. And we did that with Bill Knott. We went there day one and we had to wait a whole year. I've only been carnivore a little over 2 years. So it's like, it hasn't been that long considering we followed several individuals over the course of a year. But the real problem for us, the reason it took long was also just the funding. Like we didn't have, here's a couple $100,000 to go buy a cinema approved camera and for you to go film all over the world. We had none of that. So we did a 24-hour live stream. We raised some money. We went and filmed Bill Knott. We ran out of money. And then we had to like scratch and fight and claw for every penny to keep going. So we would do a live stream or we would do a meetup and we would raise a little bit more money and then we could, so it was a lot of stopping and starting, but we're on the home stretch now. I'm so excited to be on to the next chapter. I was just talking to the editor yesterday, and I can't wait for people to see the whole story.
It's going to be amazing. Yeah, you just published a 3 minute long, I guess trailer isn't the right word, but just kind of like a teaser with all the stories. And it was so great to see so many people that we've been able to host on our podcast as well, including Lee Kopus, who we just barely talked to, and thinking like he's going to be featured in the movie, but also knowing that there's such a much longer story that needs to be told about his story about having his entire colon removed and what that taught him about undigested plant materials making it straight out of his digestive system is absolutely fascinating. So we'll be looking forward to those complete stories as well. I think that's a huge part of what you're doing.
Yeah, Lee's story is incredible, as you mentioned. The thing that was remarkable with him too was all of the suffering that that man has been through. And one of the biggest issues on his list was mental health, depression, which was a common theme and thread throughout the whole documentary, is people's mental health improving when they return to a proper human diet. But yeah, his story is huge in the documentary, but in the series I mentioned too, not only are we hoping to do individual health episodes, like an episode all about cancer, episode all about depression, but also individual episodes about the individuals. So you really loved Lee in the main documentary. You saw a little bit of his story. Well, now here's a whole episode on Lee. Here's a whole episode on Dr. Barry. Here's a whole episode on Dr. Baker. So that's the long-term goal.
That's going to be amazing. If I time travel back very early into your carnivore journey, you said you've only been at this for over 2 years. That's a little boggling to think about, but it's true. If I go back to that journey and, I believe it was day 67 or something when you said, hey, we're going to make a documentary. If I told you the trials, the tribulations, the money, the travel, if I told you everything you would have to go through to get to this point, do you think you would still have made a documentary?
100%. It's my calling, it's my passion, it's my purpose in life is doing this now. I can't see anything else I would rather do. But it's a great question because I had no idea what I was getting into on day 67 when I announced it. In my head, I had seen a documentary years ago called Fathead. It was on Netflix. It was about the ketogenic diet. And I believe the guy, his name's Tom Naughton. He was like a stand-up comedian, but he filmed it on an old handheld camcorder. And in my brain, when I announced this, I'm like, I don't know, we'll film it on the phone. Like, it's the stories that matter, right? Like, it was just so simple in my head, and it's gone to something so much larger. But I'm thankful it did because we want to reach millions of people with this, and to do that, you got to use the good quality cameras. You got to really tell this. We only get one shot, so I am, but it's surreal. It is really surreal that this is even happening. Just 2 weeks ago, I was in Tennessee at Low Carb for Better Health, and Dr. Barry came up to me and said, hey, I want to get my picture taken with you. I'm like, he's like a hero of mine. And now he's like in the documentary and I'm chatting with him. He's sending me text messages. It's all very surreal and unbelievable.
That's amazing. Fathead, was that 2009-ish that came out?
That sounds about right. Yeah, I think so.
I remember, I wish I could time travel back into my brain when I first watched it. I can't remember when I first watched it, but that was very instrumental in my journey as well. Like I'd never seen anything like that or heard anything like that he would take on that kind of fast food project, but rather than, just eat fast food, he would just eat the meat, if I recall that story right. That was the first time, he had those animations that would explain like Ansel Keys and the diet heart hypothesis. And a lot of those pictures I use for all kinds of different material that I use. So it's interesting, like going back that far, I don't recall watching anything like that. That was a good one.
I'm with you. That was the same for me. I don't even know, like, I heard of Atkins before then, but I never really knew about keto. And I certainly didn't know about the science of it. And after watching that, I was like, this guy's just dropping truth bombs. This makes sense. And it was the first thing that I had ever tried. I tried keto after watching that documentary, and it really helped me with my mental health. It was the only thing that had helped me with my mental health. And I was on medication for 10, 15 years, SSRIs, antidepressants. So I was like, this is remarkable. And long story short, I don't know that I ever would have started carnivore without that introduction to keto. Because if I was going from standard American diet to carnivore, I could never have wrapped my brain around it. But when I heard about carnivore, I'm like, this is just strict keto. I understand the science of keto. Like this should work. But yeah, that was hugely instrumental for me. And honestly, probably a part of the reason I'm doing the documentary, because that was so powerful for me. I'm like, we need something like this on carnivore. There's so many keto docs out there now since Fathead. Nothing really when I first started doing this on carnivore at all at that point.
Yeah, for sure. One of my favorite things one of our guests has told me is like, if you don't think a carnivore diet is weird, I think you're weird. Like the first time you hear about it, like my reaction was turning off the Sean Baker episode of Joe Rogan halfway through, and I'm like, this is absolutely ridiculous. I got to turn this off. But we go through different trials and tribulations that bring us here. I was telling somebody recently, like you don't find a ton of people that do carnivore just for the hell of it. Like, this sounds fun. I'm just going to do this and never eat some of these other things. There seems to be some level of confusion or suffering or something that people have gone through. And you've definitely, gone into your, personal journey of health and have mentioned several things already. But I do want to go back and if you don't mind, tell some of the listeners what things you were dealing with in your own health. And also to say, like, you're what, 44, 45 now? Like, pretty young, you were dealing with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I'm 45 now, and in my 30s, I was on statins for 8 years. Big regret of mine. We could talk more about that, but I was 100 pounds heavier than I am right now. And I had horrible depression. That was my worst issue, depression and anxiety for 10 or 15 years. I finally went in for help. They put me on antidepressants, SSRIs, and they never really helped me. I would go on a course of those, and then they would up the dosage. They would change the dosage, and it never helped me. I felt like a zombie walking around. I had arthritis in my foot and in my back. I had IBS. I had multiple kidney stones. They removed my gallbladder. My appendix burst on the operating room table. I was diagnosed with sleep apnea. This was most of this was in my 30s. Like, I was just a mess. So many health issues. The biggest thing for me was about 10 years ago, I was at home and I went to stand up and I got dizzy, confused. My lip was drooping. I couldn't tell my wife what was going on, and she called 911, and I suffered a TIA mini stroke. And I spent 5 days at the stroke unit in the hospital. And they're like, what is wrong with this dude? He's got so many health issues. He's on all this medication in his 30s. They tested my heart and they diagnosed me with congestive heart failure. My ejection fraction was 44, which just means my heart can't keep up with the needs of my body. It's also a very scary diagnosis when you hear congestive heart failure. I'm like, what is that? Am I dead? Like, what does that even mean? And all of those issues in my 30s and then into my early 40s, yeah, they just mounted up one on top of the other. And I was depressed, and I was fatigued, and I had brain fog and memory loss, and I was just a shadow of the human being I am today.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you to take us into kind of a day in the life of what that used to look like for you, and you've kind of done that pretty well. One thing that we really flew by last time we chatted, something you just mentioned, the digestive issues, the IB, you said IBS, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us that one specifically? I think that one's really underrated and way prevalent in the population. Like, it seems like everybody has something like that. Can you tell us, like, that one in particular, what that was like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. So the IBS it started out a little bit more mild. My stomach just always felt heavy and bloated, issues with gas. And then it turned into pain. Like, I was just eating and my stomach would always hurt. There was always this heaviness. And I went to the doctor. They put me on the low FODMAP diet. I followed it religiously. I still had these issues. I still had pain and heaviness and um, problems in the bathroom, stuff like that. And it went on for years and years. Stomach just always hurt. And I get people that will tell me now, Kerry, the only reason you healed on carnivore is because you got rid of all that junk food. And I strongly argue that, because for well over a year, but for at least a year before I started carnivore, I did a strict keto plant-based diet, and vegetables, salad for lunch, salad for dinner. I'd have a little bit of like low fat protein, like chicken or something, because right, red meat's going to clog my arteries, give me a heart attack. That's what I thought back then. But I was eating so clean for almost a year, and I still had the IBS. It was one of the big epiphanies for me on carnivore. One day, a couple of weeks into carnivore, I told my wife, I said, I don't feel my stomach anymore. Like, there's always been this heaviness, this something here, and it feels like there's nothing there anymore. And then I got kind of mad because I'm like, that's probably the default state. Like, it should have always felt like that, like nothing. Like, it's just there. There's just air there. And then I started realizing, you know what? I feel like this whole IBS thing, it's just it's the standard American diet. It's not eating the proper human diet. We get an upset stomach and then we label it with this IBS, and there's nothing like the advice they gave me was change your diet, do this low FODMAP diet, try eat something else, but there was never a solution for it. But it was 100% the foods I was eating in for me, and I believe many other people, I've interviewed so many now, Dr. Hampton being one, he was vegetarian, eating vegetables, still had IBS. So for a lot of people, believe it or not, people don't like to talk about this stuff, but vegetables can be a big part of the problem. Fiber can be a big part of the problem as well. So
Yeah, I agree. I think you'll see where I'm going with this question, but I want to tee this up a little bit. You have done homesteading for quite a while at this point, correct?
yeah,
Have you
kind of.
helped people all over the world with homesteading, correct? All different kinds of climates, places all over the world?
Yes, I've done my best. We've been doing it for over 10 years, YouTubing videos, but I always said learn with us because we're city slickers, kind of making mistakes and learning as we go, learn from our mistakes. But absolutely, it's been over 10 years now.
Okay, you've had your hands in the dirt per se. You've been outside a lot. You've created a lot of things. You've worked with people and learned their experiences. I'm so taken aback by this. Looking at landscapes, like a natural landscape, like sure, like in my neighborhood, there's a garden plot that's about 5 minute walk away where people have been toiling all summer long, and now there's a few tomatoes. And I think to myself, like, okay, I could probably have enough tomatoes to keep me happy for like a day, and then they'd be all gone. And maybe there's some squash and some other things, but those things would be gone. And then I look at the natural landscape, one that's not cultivated, and it's just so diverse with so many different plants and animals and things that are living naturally. There's like nothing for me. Like there would be nothing for me to eat. And I'm just curious, like you learn more when you're getting into carnivore, but are you ever taken aback, like with the homesteading, with the natural lifestyle, working with people all over the world? The issue to me seems to be like, yeah, these vegetables aren't that great in vast quantities. They're not in vast quantities anywhere else unless you cultivate them with industrial equipment, right? Like what has been your experience learning about some of that stuff?
Oh, Casey, I love this one. Yeah, we suffered and struggled to try to grow stuff here. Like I said, we were learning, but it's sandy soil, but also it's hard for everyone to grow anything just in general. But your example is so true. I've mentioned this before. I live in Wisconsin, and maybe you see some of the trees out here in the background, but we live in a forest, and I'm like, historically, what would have happened? There's nothing out there. Like, I'm gonna eat some pine needles. There's nothing out there to eat. What about I'm in Wisconsin in winter. It's like there's snow on the ground for half the year. There's nothing to eat. There's so many arguments like with the vegetables. I'm with you 100%. If you just that's what I always do is I like to go back to just using my own two eyes. What would we have done historically since the start of time? There's lots of animals out here. There's wild turkey, there's deer, there's lots of meat, but there's nothing else to eat. So yeah, I'm with you on that. The whole growing the garden thing too was always crazy. And in the end, I was talking to my wife about this before. I'm like, think of all the money and effort we spent on that. And we had one year that was a success, but even then, it's like you said, you get like a bushel of tomatoes or something. Then the insects eat the rest of them. And I had to like amend the soil, and you're out there every day and pouring water all over it, and you get this little bit of thing. And then when you learn more, so you mentioned Lee Kopus earlier, his testimony with his ileostomy bag and how when he would eat vegetables, the bag would just fill up with green mush and gas and vegetable. He's like, I'm chewing this stuff and it's in the bag. So you go through all that work and toil to make the garden, and then you digest it, and almost all of it goes right out. It's just like Lee said, it's just waste in, waste out.
Yeah, that's crazy. I was brought up in the Mormon faith here in the Salt Lake Valley, and learning about how the Mormons kind of transitioned from New York. They spent several years in the winters of Ohio, where the prophet was given an edict about nutrition and the foods that you should be eating. And he talks about like that you should partake of the fruits and plants that I've given you and things thereof. And this is given in like February in northern Ohio, and thinking like you of course eat the fruit when it's in season. It's
Right.
never in season besides like 2 or 3 weeks a year, maybe. And it's totally different than what we would recognize as fruits and vegetables, let alone anything that we consider like processed food, which is a whole nother side of things.
100%. I was gonna say that too. That's what we have here. We get raspberries, and it's like 2 weeks out of the year, and that's it. And then people will make that argument, like on my YouTube channel, they'll say stuff like that. And it's exactly like you said. The raspberries that are here are nothing like the raspberries you go buy in the store. You go have those tested ones, and they got fertilizer and glyphosate all over them, which is patented as an antibiotic. There's all sorts of ways that these vegetables and fruits are compromised now that I don't think people pay enough attention to. I really think it's a serious issue, especially when you get into glyphosate. Not, people are always like, it's the dose that matters. And my argument back to that is okay, it's the dose that matters, but it's also the frequency of the dose. If you're consuming these things out of season multiple times a day for years and years and decades, a lot of people don't realize this, but glyphosate is actually patented as an antibiotic. It's a weed killer, but it's an antibiotic. And everyone knows you shouldn't be consuming antibiotics for a long time. But meanwhile, the majority of humanity is consuming low levels of antibiotics chronically for decades. And it's fruit and vegetables, and it just gets a complete pass. And meanwhile, there's an epidemic of leaky gut going on, depression, anxiety, fertility issues, hormonal issues that are all tied to those sorts of things. So it all makes sense. And I think a lot of times people are trying to be cautious and they're like, yeah, just have a balanced diet, have this. I think there's actually some harm that could be done, especially when you look at how people are consuming fruit nowadays, multiple times per day, out of season, just wreaking havoc on their liver. And oh, it's fruit. It's so good for you. It's like, of course, it's better than eating a Twinkie or a Dorito, but it doesn't mean it's something that should be consumed multiple times per day for years and years.
Yeah, such a good point, man. According to people in the produce who are like experts, they say the apples are already a year old by the time you get them. They call them birthday apples at the store. So yeah, it's a totally different context. I appreciate your insight into that. And let's jump ahead and just kind of describe like what is a day in the life for a carnivore. Nowadays, thinking about all the problems you used to deal with. How do you go through life today as a carnivore?
Supercharged. But maybe not. Maybe this is how it was always intended, but supercharged relative to what I was doing before. Before, here on the homestead, we're doing homesteading videos. We're gonna go cut down a tree today. We're gonna get some firewood. I would go cut down a tree and I would be huffing and puffing, and sadly my wife and kids would have to take over and finish the job because I was just fatigued and tired. Now my energy is endless. It's remarkable. I wake up usually at like 4 or 5 in the morning, and I'm wide awake. I'm ready to go. I get just a couple hours of sleep, and I'm good to go. Right now, I'm eating 2 meals a day, usually eggs for breakfast and ground beef or bacon, and burger patties or steak or something for lunch. But working on the documentary, working on the homestead. My wife and I run our small town movie theater. We have an Airbnb. We're like juggling a million things, but I'm really enjoying it. The biggest epiphany for me on carnivore was I appreciate life more and I feel like I'm busy living. I love the movies, and there's a quote in Shawshank Redemption, get busy living or get busy dying. And I feel like I'm busy living now, and I was kind of busy dying before. I was just barely getting by.
My favorite movie of all time, man. I love that movie. I love that quote. Last time you updated us a little bit on the journey of the rest of the family. Can you give us an update now that it's been over a year that we talked? How are everybody else in the family doing?
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that question. I'm bad with dates. It seems like I've been carnivore for 20 years now. It's only been a little over 2 years, like we said, but my wife has now been carnivore. She's over 500 days, which blows my mind. She was vegan for most of her life, or vegetarian, mostly vegan, but vegetarian. And she started carnivore and she fell off. And I thought there's no way she's ever going to do this again. It's really hard for someone that only eats plants to only eat meat. But she's been strict carnivore for over 500 days. My wife and I have triplets plus one. The girls are all eating this way. My daughter Katie is 99% carnivore, mostly keto. My daughter Lily is on and off. But I'm thankful that she has this as a tool in her toolbox. She found incredible healing on carnivore when I first started 2 years ago. She keeps fluctuating. It's hard with she's grown now, so she can make her own decisions. But I'm just happy she has it as a tool in her toolbox.
Yeah, for sure. Do they get punished more now than they would before if they drift off the diet, and helps kind of keep them on the straight and narrow as far as that goes?
100%. Yeah. Oh, great question. Like my daughter Emma, she's been carnivore with me this whole time. Strict carnivore. And she was vegan for 5 years before starting carnivore. This has just completely changed her life. She's had a couple. I remember her birthday. They cheated, and it was one of her biggest regrets. Like she could feel it right away. Acne came back, just fatigue, tired, all this stuff. That's one of the beautiful things with carnivore is even if you're not cheating, if you just come in contact with some seed oils or something, you can sense it so much better because you don't have so many variables, so much input.
Yeah, for sure. Like my low level anxiety comes back and my sleep sucks. And I've said many times, like, is it the worst? Like I can manage it. It's not that bad. I just like 2 days of like fasting or, being really strict with the diet and it will come back. But it sucks for a little while, enough to make me not want to do it very often. The
Yeah.
punishment definitely increases over time. One of the things I really enjoy about your content and the way you talk about carnivores, you make this really practical and approachable, accessible for a lot of people. And so I wanted to ask you, what are some of the things you would want somebody who's just getting started on this to know? Like, how do you make this fit your everyday life? How does it fit the budget? Do you spend more or less? Does quality of meat matter? Those kinds of things. I'd love to hear about.
Yeah, for someone just starting out, my best advice, if you're just starting out, the first thing I always tell people is don't commit to this for the rest of your life because then it becomes very overwhelming and it's hard to wrap your brain around it. Give it 60 days is great, but if you could even commit, like I'm going to do this for 30 days, I'm going to do it strict. That's my best advice I give to someone starting carnivore. A lot of people start it and they're like, oh, I did good all week. I'll have my Diet Coke or I'll have a little sweet on Saturday. You're going to perpetuate that addiction to sugar. You're going to make it so much harder. It is so much easier for people that just abstain. And part of the big problem that a lot of people have is addiction to food. That's a whole other topic. But in terms of making this successful, the cost of it, for example, you mentioned carnivore is so much less expensive if you do the honest math. And a lot of people don't do the honest math. Like I don't have side dishes, sauces, spices. I don't go to the gas station anymore and get junk food. I just drink water. Like if you account for all of those things, carnivore is much less expensive than the alternative. And also I'm eating way less. Like on the standard American diet, I was always hungry. So I'm just constantly eating. Now eat a couple eggs for breakfast and some patties in the afternoon and I'm satiated. I'm full. The other thing is, this is hard to calculate, but in terms of the cost, this is the truth. I've heard from so many people, no matter what you are doing in life, when you're eating a proper human diet and you heal your body and you have this extra energy and you're making better, wiser decisions, you will be more successful at whatever you're doing. And that has been a common thread amongst the 60 people we interviewed that was unexpected for me. It's like, for example, we interviewed pastors Jimmy and Annette. They've been running a church in Texas for 20 years. And after 1 year on carnivore, their congregation doubled in size. And they attributed it to carnivore. And I'm not trying to overhype carnivore, but everyone has a similar story to that. And it makes sense because if you're in a brain fog, inflammation, stupor, plopping down on the couch because you can barely do anything and you can't make proper decisions, your life is a result of the decisions you make. If you're able to have the energy to make proper decisions, your life's going to be better. Plus, if you have the energy to then perform and like do what you need to do to reach your goals and things like that, you're going to be much more successful. So if you take all of those things into account, carnivore is the best deal in the world, in my opinion, even though meat can be expensive. The last thing I'll say real quick on the expensive part of it is the primary part of my diet for over 2 years now, it's been eggs. And eggs, the price went up for a while. It's coming back down now, but eggs are one of the best things in the world to eat. I literally eat them every single day. I could live off of eggs alone, I think, and I would absolutely be thriving. But eggs and burger patties, I do a lot of YouTube videos where I'm cooking up a beautiful steak. That's just because it's cinematic and it's cool and it's special. The truth is the most what I eat is it's eggs and burger patties, which is inexpensive, relatively speaking.
A few bucks. Yeah, you're right about the eggs. The prices are very, very affordable, regardless of the quality you're going to get. I just bought, 4 dozen in my neighborhood for less than $20 from somebody who was just selling them. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. Even I just picked up like a strip. That's the entire roll of strips, and I can cut that down into 10 steaks. And that was like $7 a pound. Like you can make this really accessible and affordable. So I really appreciate that. I also wanted to ask you something we kind of mentioned last time, but we didn't go into much detail. I wanted to hear your experience with fasting. One of the natural things that people experience is something you've already mentioned, which is you feel very satiated. You're so full with the meals. We don't think about fasting as like this forced thing. It tends to come quite naturally. Can you tell us about your experience with fasting?
Absolutely. I fasted a little bit before carnivore a couple of years ago, and I felt amazing. And when I started carnivore, it reminded me, I was like, when I feel so good just doing regular carnivore, I feel like that time I fasted before. It's kind of interesting how that works. But on carnivore, I've done several fasts. I've done multiple 3-day fasts. I also did an 8-day water fast at one point. And then more recently, I've been exploring doing dry fasting, which I got to be careful, Casey, because whenever I talk about this, everybody flips out and freaks out. I always recommend there's a really good book I'm not telling anyone what to do. I'm not telling you to wet fast, dry fast. Everyone's on their own journey, but there's a great book called The Phoenix Protocol that talks about dry fasting and all the research that's been done on dry fasting. I'm probably only going to be doing dry fasting going forward. I felt that much better doing dry fasting, but I think fasting's incredible. The thing I tell people with fasting, and the thing I tell people with carnivore, and the thing I tell people even with all the discussions that are coming up in the news right now with Tylenol is, I like to look at the football field analogy. I don't know if anyone here has heard this before. Some people have talked about it before, but I imagine all of humans on Earth on a football field. And imagine like that's us eating on Earth, right? That entire football field. Now, if you go down to the very end of the football field and you find that very last blade of grass on the end, that represents what humans have been doing for the last like 100 years or so, eating the standard American diet or whatever. Throughout that whole football field, we have fasted over and over and over again. We didn't have the blessing of being able to just snap our fingers and have food here. Like we would have, again, the analogy of the woods here in Wisconsin, I would have went out there, hunted a big animal, feasted, and then I would have been lucky to maybe eat again 2-3 days, maybe a week. It's natural what humans have done since the start of time. It's the same thing with carnivore. Like through that whole football field, we've been eating primarily meat. We've been eating vegetables as starvation food here or there, but it's primarily been meat since the start of time. When people say they're scared of starting carnivore, I'm like, you should be scared of that blade of grass on the end, what we're doing right now, where everybody's sick. Like everybody is sick and metabolically sick and overweight, and they're worried about carnivore. I'm like, you should be worried about the opposite of carnivore. So sorry, I kind of went on a tangent there, but I think fasting's absolutely incredible. I highly recommend it. I've never felt better than when I fasted. And there's lots of evidence to it as well, going into autophagy and cell regeneration and things like that. So it's a regular part of my life. I try to keep it somewhat random, but I try to do it regularly.
Got it. Okay. And dry fasting, just to clarify for the listener, dry fasting means you're not taking in water as well.
No water is all. And there's a couple types of dry fast where you don't even like take a shower or anything like that.
Got it.
So you don't even have to touch your skin. But yeah, it's no water. I know it sounds crazy. I have a friend of mine, Lauren Tucker. She's from the UK. We interviewed her for our documentary. She's the one that suggested I'd read the book. And the book, again, everyone should check it out. It's really incredible. They've done this in Russia, like thousands and thousands of people, and overcome crazy health issues by doing dry fasts. And they've actually studied it, and they have paperwork on it. But Lauren did one for 7 days. And when she told me that, Casey, I'm like, that's impossible. You can't live more than 3 days without water. You're going to die. And it's another thing that is not true. Like, that's not true. Your body will actually, through a process called fat metabolism, your body will metabolize the fat and actually turn it into water. And in these studies in Russia they did, and I noticed it for myself, they'll measure the urine output. And there's people that were doing this for 14 days. And by day 14, they had more urine output than they did on day 10 than they did on day 6 without drinking any water whatsoever. So it's like, where's that coming from? Your body is able to create it and metabolize it. There's all sorts of benefits to both types of fasting, but I always encourage people, just do some more research.
Yeah. What's the name of the book again?
The Phoenix Protocol by August Dunning, I believe it is. Dunning.
Got it. Okay, I'll look it up and we'll link it in the show notes. And this has to be somewhat related. Most of us can think about like a bear in hibernation, for example. And we think about the bear getting fat and tends to eat a little bit more fructose at the end of summer if it can find it, adds the weight, and then goes and sleeps. And we think about the food, it's like, yeah, the bear is burning off fat, and that's how it's able to go, months and months without eating. But oftentimes you don't really think about the water. I had never considered that. And I don't know who brought it up to me that yes, burning the fat will release more water, and the bear doesn't need to drink for months and months. Not only is it not eating, it's also not drinking, it's not dying. So that must be a related mechanism that I think is absolutely interesting.
Yeah, I never thought about the bear analogy. That's so true with hibernation. You always think, yeah, they got the fat. There it is.
Right. So there's the water. Yeah. So interesting. Like I said, we'll link that in the show notes. That book sounds fascinating. I'll put that on my list as well. And last time you kind of told us the nexus of the project, healing humanity. I love the angle that you took, frankly. It's so important to learn the science and find the people with the letters behind their name to explain things, because that gives credibility to all of this. That's the way, both you and I kind of got into this and realized like, no, this is safe. I'm not going to kill myself. Excuse me. I will poop again at some point. I'm fairly confident of that. But you include that, but you also decided to focus on the stories. And it's been a while now since we chatted. And so I wondered if we could get a little bit of an update on some of the incredible stories that you've included in the documentary.
Yeah, absolutely. there's so many. So we've done 60 interviews all over the world, and the focus is on the stories first and foremost. We do have 9 doctors and experts in there, but my thing is, like, you can debate and argue the science all the time, and the science is important. We have it in there, but it's hard to argue just story after story of healing. So we've interviewed all sorts of people. The first interview was Bill Nod in Alaska, who was 700 pounds stuck in his house for almost 5 years. We then waited an entire year, filmed him a year later, and he's out in the beauty of Alaska, overcame depression, anxiety. He's nearly, Casey, half the man he used to be. He started at 700 pounds. He's right around 350 pounds down right now. And he's become like a best friend. My family and I went to visit him, not for the documentary, just out of our own a personal family vacation, just to visit him. He's like Uncle Bill now. So his story is incredible. We filmed so many other stories. Mimi had diagnosed with Parkinson's, full-blown stroke. She's 70 now, and she was in South Carolina. She's training to hike the St. Francis of Assisi Trail. It's a 500-mile hike. She was bedridden and could barely walk. I saw her paperwork. She had a Parkinson's diagnosis, stroke diagnosis, in complete remission. She has no evidence of either of those things anymore. She's absolutely thriving. Um, so many stories of just incredible healing like that. We filmed Lynn. She's a GI nurse. She's actually on our Healing Humanity team as well. She documented her journey so well on YouTube. Lynn DeVokie, midlife carnivore, and she was a GI nurse. She's down well over 100 pounds, maybe close to 150 pounds on carnivore, but mast cell activation disease, all sorts of, she had to quit her job. Her chronic diseases, multiple diseases that she had, forced her to retire early from her nursing job. And she's absolutely thriving on carnivore. It was kind of a cool part of the documentary. We filmed her 1 year later. Her husband's a pilot, and she was not just too large to fit in her husband's plane, but also just too many health issues. She's like, what if I had an emergency up in the air? I'm just too scared to fly. Well, 1 year later, she went and flew with her husband of 30 years. His huge passion in the world is flying. She's never flown before in her life with him. She got to fly with him. We filmed that 1 year later for the documentary. We filmed stories in Australia. Limitless Lindy down 500 pounds on carnivore. We filmed in the UK. Lauren Tucker, Alex Cannon, Lee Copus, his story. So all over the world. One of the most popular stories some people here may have heard is Rancher Maggie in Canada. She was 82 when we filmed her, and she's been eating a carnivore diet for 65 years, and she's absolutely thriving. It's crazy. She's jumping over fences. She lifted 100 pounds worth of feed at 82 years old. She's got just 2 guns, just muscle cannons at 82 years old. And when I interviewed her, she said, Kerry, this is midlife. I'm 82 years old and this is midlife. My kids are grown. I'm not retiring. She got upset with me when I asked her about retirement. She's like, why would I retire? I've got too much energy to retire. So yeah, it's been an incredible journey. So many stories of healing.
No, that's wonderful. I want to go back to Bill's story, and I hope you can kind of set the context for this. When you say Bill has been trapped in his home in Alaska, can you tell us what the reality of that was actually like?
Yeah, it was so much worse than I imagined. So I'm thinking this guy's stuck in his house. He was the first person we filmed. This was way back in the day, early on. My daughter Emma and I flew out to Alaska. We're driving to this guy's house, and I'm like, this is probably bad parenting. This is some guy I met on the internet and taking my teenage daughter there to film. This was before my buddy Adam joined me to help filming. But when we got there, it's a house, but it's like a bedroom. It's probably about 10 by 10 feet, and it's a bed, and then there's the toilet in the corner. So he's more confined to a room than a house. But then when we got inside and we met Bill and fell in love with Bill, he's one of the most amazing people I've ever met. Just incredible person. But he's not just trapped in the room now. So it goes from house to room to bed. Like, he was bedridden. He could just barely walk the 8 feet to the toilet, and he was hunched over. He could not stand up straight. He had to walk with his hands on his knees. But 99% of his time, he's confined to the corner of the bed in that little room. Hadn't been out of his house in 5 years. And as Emma and my daughter, are driving there, it's the most beautiful place in the world that I've ever been to. Alaska, you're just looking around, cameras can't do it justice. And then you get to this guy's house, you're like, what a prison to be trapped in, when out your window is the beauty of Alaska right there. It was remarkable. And the last thing I'll say on Bill is, 700 pounds, right? So we always talk about carnivore and weight loss. Bill is more excited about his mental health improving on carnivore. He was hopelessly depressed, anxiety and depression, and that went away on carnivore. I bet you if I asked Bill right now, he'd probably take that 350 pounds back just to be gone with the depression and anxiety that he experienced for decades before this.
I wish more people would understand that. Like, this is the only diet I've ever found that the hook is weight loss, just like any other diet. Most people want to lose weight, they want to burn fat. But it's the only diet I've ever found where, in a really quick amount of time, people just don't really care that much about the weight loss. That's like the background thing that's happening. It's all the other awakenings that people are experiencing that it really makes this diet and way of lifestyle so special.
I'm so glad you said that. It's been something that I've learned so much doing this documentary, and that is one thing. So many people think of carnivore as a weight loss regimen, a temporary fad. Like, this is, I can go through this thing for 30 days and drop a couple pounds. And I thought that too when I first started. I'm hoping with the documentary we can get the word out that it's nothing to do with weight loss. You are fixing your metabolic health. And as a side effect of that, your body's going to go down to whatever its natural and proper weight is. This isn't just some temporary regimen or fad to drop a couple pounds. It's frustrating. Humans are so visual, and I'm part of the problem too, right? Because I'll do YouTube videos, and it's hard to visualize someone overcoming their depression. So we usually have before and after pictures. Here's someone that lost 100 pounds. They were overweight, and now they're regular. We're very visual that way, so a lot of people come to it that way. But that is really what I've learned filming 60 people and all of these doctors. It's nothing to do with weight loss. You will heal everything if you fix your metabolic health. Your weight will go down to its natural point, and it's really a side effect of carnivore, but it's so much more powerful than a weight loss regimen.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Okay, so I've been carnivore 6.5 months. I've been coaching people on carnivore for I'm sorry, 6.5 years. I've been coaching people on carnivore for 5.5 years, people all over the world. It's been a wonderful journey. You have accumulated so many stories at this point. You mentioned, maybe 50 or 60 making it into the documentary, including some of the doctors you mentioned. And you've described all the wonderful stories, the great stories. In all your experience, plus all the things you do on the side, right? All the content you've created and other interviews you've done, people that didn't make it into the movie. In your experience, drawbacks, side effects, things that did not go well. Yes, I reversed my mental health, but I didn't end up losing the fat that I wanted. Like, have you heard anybody like dropping out because they quit because it sucks, or something also came back? Or is it really truly, in your experience, have you noticed that pretty much everything across the board gets better, and you'd have to rack your brain to try to find one little thing that didn't?
Oh, it's a great question. Uh, for the most part, the healing is just incredible, but there are struggles for many people. I think one of the issues is if you're coming straight on for a standard American diet and you're ripping the Band-Aid off and you're going straight into carnivore, it's going to suck. Like, it's going to be really hard. You may have issues with your gut bacteria adjusting. You may have the keto flu. And for some, they're like, I tried carnivore, and they did, like, they tried it, but they maybe should have eased into it. That's one thing I see. Another thing I see, and I alluded to this a little bit earlier, is people that will start carnivore, but they don't realize that this isn't Weight Watchers. This isn't, I did good all week, now I can treat myself. Um, it takes a while to get your body into ketosis and get your gut bacteria, gut biome adjusted. One of the powerful things I learned on this is I had a woman on that was talking about her gut bacteria and how sensitive it is, and how many of us are healing that on carnivore, and we probably don't realize it. There's a lot of people that report 3 weeks into carnivore just having this, like, God, I feel good. Like, what is going on? And this person, Malia, she said that's probably because they're having a major die off of that bad gut bacteria because they're starving it of carbs and sugar and starches. And so when you have a cheat on carnivore, even if it's a little one, people hate it when I say this, but I got to speak the truth. I want to help people that are suffering. You can refeed that gut bacteria and it just flourishes. And now it takes a while to get back into things again. So this one little cheat thing, I would discourage people from. And I see a lot of people that start carnivore, and even if they don't think they're cheating, maybe it's an artificial sweetener or it's just a diet soda or something like that, it makes it so much harder for them. The last thing I'll say is some people that are maybe really skinny, or women, different types of bodies, everybody's different. Everyone's on their own journey. I was incredibly blessed. This was easy for me. Compared to my wife, for example, my wife was vegetarian her entire life. I love steak. I was saying this to her the other day and she had a good argument. She's like, Kerry, imagine if I made you just eat broccoli the rest of your life. I gagged a little bit. I'm like, I don't know I could do it. That's what she had to do to become carnivore because she was disgusted by meat her entire life. So different body types, different journeys. If you're going into this really skinny and you don't have fat to lose, there could be challenges there, eating enough fat. But the biggest thing I'll end on with this one is the biggest mistake I see people meet is they will do carnivore and they will legitimately be doing it. They'll be eating meat, but they're not getting enough fat. And that's where a lot of people get messed up and they end up failing and they end up quitting and they end up suffering. It's especially if you're going through this for health issues, like for me, depression, anxiety, it's nothing to do with just eating lean chicken breast. That's carnivore, right? I'm eating it. It's all about the fat. And when we interviewed Dr. Eid, she told me, Kerry, you have two dials on carnivore. You have the protein dial and the fat dial. And a lot of people, especially with serious health issues, whether that's mental health or otherwise, they need to turn down the protein dial and turn up the fat dial. You can adjust that, get into a deeper therapeutic state of ketosis and find healing where you might not have otherwise. And so some people will do carnivore correctly, but not correctly. It's, as Dr. Kiltzoy says, it should be called fativore. It's really about getting all of that fat.
Yeah, so that's such a great point. I love that. And yeah, man, it's a slippery slope when you start to introduce some of those cheats. Like recently, I've gotten into like having like whole cashews, like salted cashews. I don't know why I started, but like I'll pass them at the grocery store and think like, I probably shouldn't. Okay, I will this one time. And like, dude, I've got the container leveled in like 3 or 4 nights. Like
Yeah.
you have a handful, and then you have a handful, and like, okay, I'm good. I shouldn't have any more. So 5 more handfuls, and then 3 more handfuls. And I found that like, dude, it's such a slippery slope. And if I just have all I need is the willpower when I pass them at the grocery store to just look the other way and not grab them. And then they're not in my environment and I don't have them and it's not a problem. But if I kind of think like, oh, they'd be really good, if I do, they're gone. They're gone. I
Yeah.
can't handle it.
I love you mentioned cashews. I'm smiling because that was my go-to on keto before starting carnivore. And I did the same thing, Casey. I remember once I went online and I told my wife, I'm like, I'm going to get a really expensive scale because then I'm going to be held accountable to like just this many cashews will be X number of carbs. I could do it, right? It was the same thing you said. Oh, what's another handful? And then it's like, well, I've had too much now. We'll just start over tomorrow. But I polished that whole container off every single time.
Oh man, I'm glad you can relate. The scale thing's hilarious. Thinking we're actually gonna have the willpower to like, not blast
Yeah,
past whatever our
I
goal
had these
is.
little cups. I'd measure them
Sure.
out in the cups. Never worked.
10 of them. Oh man. I do want to ask you to comment about one of the stories you followed, which was a beautiful story. Jeff in the documentary, such a wonderful human being from the looks of it. I never got to meet him. We didn't get to interview him. But can you share with us a little bit about Jeff's story?
Yeah, absolutely. So Jeff was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. When he recounted this to me in the documentary, it was one of the most powerful things I've ever heard anyone say was his interview. When they told him he had cancer, they said, Jeff, you are inoperable, incurable, terminal, you're palliative, and you have 3 months left to live. That is what they told him, gave him no hope whatsoever. And thankfully, through his friend Dwight, he found the carnivore diet. He found Dr. Chafee and he fell in love with Dr. Chafee and Dr. Baker and Dr. Barry. He started watching these videos and he started doing carnivore and he started thriving. He was doing chemo before this and he was suffering. He had stomach issues and he was on the couch and he was fatigued and everything that you've heard about with chemotherapy. It's brutal, right? He started doing carnivore and he was still doing chemo and it was tolerable. Like it wasn't even hardly bothering him anymore. And then he just started absolutely thriving. He's running, he's exercising, he's on the soccer field. In his 40s, he's like, I feel like I'm 20 years old again. I feel better than I have my entire life. And with stage 4 cancer, he wasn't even like talking so much about cancer. He's just so fired and passionate about carnivore. He's like, everybody should be doing this. I should have been feeling this way my whole life. And Jeff was diagnosed with 3 months to live. He survived for 30 months. He went 10 times what they diagnosed him. And I got to thank Professor Seafried. I didn't even know about Seafried. We never were going to have cancer in our documentary. It all happened because of Jeff. And if I'm being honest, when Jeff first approached me, I'm like, this is too much. This is too heavy. And who am I to like, this is like beyond me. Like, I don't have any right to be doing this. Someone else should be reporting on this thing was my thought. But I'm so thankful that we included Jeff in our documentary. And then it expanded from there that we included Professor Seafried. We interviewed his entire team at Boston College. And we have 5 other people in the documentary with cancer. And all of that was because of of Jeff and his story. And the last thing I'll say on Jeff is his story is the most powerful story in our documentary. What he said as well in the documentary was he looked at the camera and he said, I believe that I caused my cancer through lifestyle and diet. And most people in the world are told, Jeff included, he was told when he was diagnosed with cancer, he said, why? Why did this happen? They said, we don't know. You're just a fluke. You're just a fluke. We don't know what. And that's what everyone's told when it's either your genetics or it's a fluke. And the only option is expensive chemotherapy. There's never any other option or tool. And Jeff wanted the world to know there is another tool in the toolbox. It's metabolic therapy. It's what Professor Seyfried talks about. And Jeff wants the world to know that that metabolic therapy gave Jeff 2.5 precious years extra with his wife and children that he wouldn't have had otherwise. And so his story is such a powerful part of our documentary. It's so sad that we lost Jeff. He became a best friend of mine. But his story is so powerful because it's a cautionary tale. There's a lot of people that I'll talk to now and they'll say, oh, I'd like to do carnivore, but I like my pizza too much. I like my junk food too much. I like this too much. Careful, because you're 1 in 2 of us watching this right now are going to be diagnosed with cancer. And the sad and brutal truth is, this is harsh, but when you're diagnosed with cancer, you likely caused it from lifestyle. Years ago, it was from smoking. Nowadays, if your body is chronically and systemically inflamed for years and years and decades, that's how you end up with cancer. That used to happen from smoking, but now the majority of people's bodies are chronically and systemically inflamed from the foods they're eating that are chronically inflaming them for years and years and decades. So his story is a cautionary tale. And we've got 3 big stories in the documentary: Bill, Lynn, and Jeff. And then we have a lot of smaller supporting stories that'll then be in the series. But Jeff's story is the most important one in the documentary. And I can't wait to share it with the world because I think it's going to help so many people. It already is. The last thing I'll say, sorry, I'm rambling, but we got one other guy in the documentary, Anthony Haydick, stage 4 terminal gist cancer. This guy is thriving on carnivore. He sounds exactly like Jeff. He only ever learned about carnivore because of Jeff, and Jeff being brave and sharing his story on his YouTube channel. We filmed Anthony along with Dr. Baker as one of our last interviews on the documentary.
Well, it's easy to look at the situation and say it's so sad that he's gone. To think maybe it was too late. The carnivore couldn't do enough at that point is one thing, but also you think about all the quality of life that he got to experience at the end of life and how he was able to change that. And now, even though he's gone, he's going to continue inspiring people all over to change. And so, like I said, I never got to meet him. He looked like an absolutely amazing human being from the things I did get to see. But to think that he now has a legacy that's going to outlive him, and he was able to create that, and you're now able to share that, I think is something that's very, very special. So I really appreciate you chatting about him, and I'm really grateful you left that as a main story because it's very powerful and needs to be told. So I really appreciate that. Like we said, we're looking at sometime in the beginning of 2026 for this movie to come out. What is that process like? Where does it go? Do you get it into film festivals? Like, what does that kind of look like?
Yeah, well, one thing that I'm really excited about is this has taken a while to get to this point, but we have incredible momentum behind us. The 9 doctors and experts we have in the documentary, they're all so fired up and excited about this, but many of them have large audiences of their own, like Dr. Barry and Dr. Baker. And most documentaries that you get out there in the world, they don't have that, right? They have someone that was passionate. They filmed a documentary. They don't have a built-in audience. We've been doing meetups all over the world. We had a meetup here in little Montello, Wisconsin, population 1,400, sold out in the little one stop sign, one stoplight in Montello. It sold out. So people are really fired up and passionate about this. Dr. Jordan Peterson tweeted out our first trailer to his 6 million followers. So we've got really good momentum. And when you look at documentaries and movies, oftentimes if you look at an actor that they picked in a movie, sometimes they'll pick this actor over this one just because they have that following and they have that audience. And most documentaries don't have that. So we're really excited that we have that. Initially, we were going to approach, we were looking at Angel Studios. We were looking at, our goal is to make it as accessible as possible and get it in front of millions of people. Our goal isn't to make money on it. We'll be lucky if we make anything on it. If we do make anything on it, all of it's going to do the series afterwards. But the goal is to make it as accessible as possible. And we consulted with a major film company. They're an Emmy award-winning consulting company. They've done their own documentaries. And their advice for us, based on our situation, was finish the documentary and then we're going to submit it to film festivals, and then we're going to work on getting an arrangement that's going to be likely a hybrid arrangement where hopefully it'll be on a big streaming service for a while. Hopefully it'll be in the movie theaters for a little while, limited release. It's definitely going to play at our Montello movie theater 100% no matter what. I've already watched half of it on there myself. But it's going to be in movie theaters. It's going to be streaming, and then I'm like, just maybe put it out on YouTube or on the website or whatever, free for everyone. We want everyone to be able to watch it.
That's amazing. If you do a back-to-back movie showing, if you have Shawshank Redemption as the first one and your movie as the second one, I might not ever leave.
Right.
That's awesome. And you also have something special coming up with Hack Your Health Conference that you'll be doing some presenting, I believe.
Yeah, we're so fortunate. We went to Hack Your Health last year, and this is when we were early on in the process, but we were invited back. So Hack Your Health is in November in Tampa, and Adam, myself, and the team will be speaking about healing humanity. We're going to be on stage, and we're going to be sharing incredible stories. And the big news is Bill Knott is planning on attending as well. And he hasn't left Alaska in like 20 years. Barely left his house. Like I said, it's been 5 years. So he's going to fly out to Alaska and appear on stage. And the reason that's so powerful, Casey, is when we spoke at Hack Your Health last year, it was my first time public speaking. I was terrified. I've since done it like 30 times now. But at the end, just out of the blue, the whole room was filled too, which was crazy. There were people standing. There was no room, but there was one seat in the front that was open. And it was my daughter's seat. And it was because she was holding the YouTube camera and she was off on the corner. But I looked down at the seat and I said, this just came to me. I wasn't like planning on saying, but like, wouldn't it be amazing if next year Bill Knott was sitting right in this seat right here? And everyone went crazy because they all love Bill. In my head, though, I'm like, that's never going to come to fruition. And now it has. Like a couple months ago, I was talking to Bill, like, we're going to be at Hack Your Health, and he actually wanted to go. And so, yeah, Bill's planning on going to be there, and several other people that we filmed for the documentary, including many of the doctors and experts. We're probably going to do a panel and have them all there. And we have a big Healing Humanity dinner that Scott Everson, who runs Meat Stock, put on for us. It's like everybody's like, if you can picture every carnivore doctor, every single one of them is going to the dinner. It's crazy. Dr. Chafee, Dr. Baker, it's like all of them are gonna be there. So we invite people to come out and join us for the dinner. It's a fundraiser dinner. All the proceeds go to the documentary, but I'm looking forward to the event itself. I've become addicted to these types of events. It's so much fun hanging out with like-minded individuals.
That's amazing. I'm bummed out that I probably won't be able to make it this year, but I was in that room last year in Austin. And I hope the organizers learned their lesson, like Robin learned their lesson of like putting you guys in a room that had a capacity of what it had. It was absolutely packed. My buddy Tony and I were standing at the back, and the door opens and there's hardly any room, and this tank of a man comes in, and it's Dr. Chafee, and he hung out in the back with us, and like we all recorded that message for Bill that got sent to him. So that was fun. I hope they learned their lesson and give you a few more square meters for more seats to accommodate everybody. The last thing I wanted to ask you about today related to your own personal health. You mentioned earlier the congestive heart failure, and yes, that's a very scary term. Can you tell us about a recent heart scan that you got? I'm very curious to see how that went for you.
Yeah. So after 1 year on carnivore, I felt so incredible. When I was diagnosed with congestive heart failure, ejection fraction was 44, 48% of my heartbeats were premature. I had a PFO, hole in my heart. My heart was a mess. Cardiomyopathy, rapid heartbeats, all of these things. But I felt so good on carnivore. I went in after 1 year to have a heart echo done. Long story short, my congestive heart failure completely reversed. The cardiologist even wrote, you no longer have evidence of cardiomyopathy. My ejection fraction went from 44 to 60. Casey, this just blew my mind, because when they diagnosed me with that, they said, this is a chronic thing. You're not going to get above 44 with your ejection fraction. You'll be lucky if it stays the same. It's not going to get better. Probably will get worse. Not only it got better, it's perfect. 60, by the way, for those that don't know, I didn't know this. I was mad because I didn't get 100%. Doctor told me if you had 100% ejection fraction, you'd be dead right now. 60 is perfect. So I had 60 after that. So that was 1 year on carnivore. I did a video on that. There's lots of love on the internet. There's also lots of hate. So many people are like, yeah, but you're still going to die. You're still going to have a heart attack. I'm like, okay, I've reversed all my markers for metabolic health, reversed my congestive heart failure. The other thing that came about with that 1 year thing was my lifelong irregular heartbeat that I had since birth reversed. My heartbeat now is perfectly normal. That is almost more mind blowing to me than the congestive heart failure, because I was born with that. And that's been tested multiple times. I've shared all of this on my channel. So all these people are still like, yeah, but you're still gonna have a heart attack. So I'm like, what else can I do to prove this? And the CAC scan, right? I kept hearing about this. Dr. Ovadia told me about getting a CAC scan. So I'm like, let's go do it. I went and got my CAC scan done. I got the results back. Big fat 0. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I just want to say real quick, I never knew how accessible this was. If you're nervous about doing carnivore or you have heart issues, go get your CAC scan done. I didn't do this through any insurance whatsoever. I literally Googled CAC scan near me. I found a place. It was about 45 minutes away. Cost me $50 out of pocket. I went into this place. It was literally, after I did the little bit of paperwork, it was 5 minutes. You sit down in this machine, they put a couple things on, didn't even have to change my clothes. And all of that in $50, big fat 0. Meanwhile, I mentioned earlier, Casey, to bring this full circle, I was on statins for 8 years. I had brain fog, muscle aches, who knows what other side effects, who knows what long-term side effects. If I could have done a $50 CAC scan before going on statins for 8 years, I would have done it in a second. I had no idea. I always thought a CAC scan, that's going to cost like 10 grand. I got to get a cardiologist involved. It's so simple. It blows my mind that people are put on statins left and right, and they're never even given that. Why not test them for a CAC, see if there's any sort of calcification in there before we start pumping them full of chemicals for the rest of their life? It just doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah, the CAC score was 0. I'm super excited about it. Dr. Ovadia said, you know, when you see that 0, that's usually, we can't do absolutes, but that's usually like 99.9% of the time, you're not going to have a heart attack in the next 10 or 15 years. It's like a warranty. It's like a 15-year warranty.
I couldn't agree with you more. I got one done last year at 40 years of age, and yeah, I paid cash. I think it was like $65. It was 15 minutes away from me. I was out of there in about 15 minutes and 0 score as well after years of eating nothing but animal products and saturated fat. It was nice to see for sure. Oh man, Kerry, this has been such a fun conversation. I really enjoyed catching up with you, and I'm so excited for the movie to get out. I've told you this before, but the stories that you tell, they offer hope and they inspire a lot of people out there. So as grateful as we are for the experts and the doctors and all the people that are studying this stuff, we're also grateful for people like you that are sharing the stories that will really be relatable to people, and it's going to change an untold number of lives out there. So grateful for you and all your amazing work. Where can people go to find you and connect with you and your work?
I love it. Thank you for your nice words, and thank you for everything you're doing to get these stories out there as well. I really appreciate it. I love what you're doing. People can find me at healinghumanity.movie. You can watch our latest trailer. If you want to help us out, you can share that trailer. That's one of the best free things you can do, is get the word out. I always talk about Bill Knott. He's incredible. Everybody loves him. There's millions of Bill Knotts in the world right now, still hopeless and depressed and suffering, that need help. So you can share our trailer. You can buy our shirts. We got this new Healing Humanity shirt that a lot of people are liking. Every penny from these shirts goes towards our documentary. We don't make any money off of it. You can donate to our GoFundMe. You can sign up for a free email newsletter. All of that is at healinghumanity.movie. Oh, the last thing I'll say real quick, at healinghumanity.movie, you could share your story. Your story has the power to save somebody's life. We're looking for more stories for the subsequent series. We're also writing a Healing Humanity book. It's going to have over 5,000 testimonies of healing. You can fill out a quick form on there. It's completely free. Share your story, and you could end up in the book or the series. So
that's amazing. We will link to all that in the show notes. That sounds amazing. I had no idea you were making a book as well. So that's going to be awesome. Kerry, thank you again so very much for all of your amazing work. And thank you for providing just an endless amount of hope to people out there. It's really inspiring. And we're so grateful for you and everything you do, and for taking time to be on our show today. We really appreciate you.
thank you, Casey. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.